What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another video. I am the Hobbyist, and today I'm going to be doing a light modification to my Axial Scx24. The original lights for my Scx24 kind of burnt out. Little light bulbs did, so there's no more lights in the bumper, but then there's also lights in the headlight buckets. There's spots for them. So I figured I would put some new LED lights on and also maybe color them so that they look a little bit more period correct. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So after a little bit of prep work and testing, I've decided that I'm going to use the original wiring harness for the bumper lights, and I'm just going to solder on new LEDs. You know, and of course I will test to make sure that the connections still work. It should. I don't see why it wouldn't, but I'll double check that anyway. So I'm going to do that, show you guys if it works, and I'll put you back on when I start soldering. All right, so I've got the wiring harness plugged into my Scx24. Let me see if I can connect the contacts so that you guys can see it. So, oh, there it is. There, can you see the little light coming on? I don't know if you can see that. There it is. All right, so see, it works just fine. So I'm going to solder these on using my new soldering helping hands. There are these things right here. They are fantastic. So I am going to show you how I'm going to use them to solder this up. All right, so let me see if I can show you guys what's going on here. So if you look right here, the hand is currently holding these. I just finished soldering this LED up, and what I basically had were the hands holding the wires in place for me because these are really tiny wires and I don't want to have to deal with that with the method I used to use before I got these, which was rubber banded pliers, which never really worked that well. So anyway, for the second one, I will show you guys a little bit more in detail as to what I am doing. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is simply put the wires into the hands and do a little tinting. And tinting is simply the process of getting a little bit of solder on them. So we're just gonna tint it. There's one. There's two. Perfect. Now, the next step is to prepare the LED. So for that, I'm going to grab the other hand and grab only one wire because I don't need that quite yet. So we're just going to tint these edges now. There we go. All right, the wires are now fully tinted and ready for soldering. Before I forget, I should probably put some heat shrink tubing over the wires because I don't want exposed wiring. Whoop, that's a little hot. Okay, don't put your hand over hot metal. That's just not a good idea. All right, so I got some heat shrink tubing on here. So now I'm going to hold that wire with this hand, hold this wire with this hand, and then move it around and line it up. And you know, I can always just slightly alter it while I'm holding it. So right here, gonna solder it. Soldered. And now to avoid any excess pressure, I'm gonna let go with this hand. And there we go. Now, simple thing to do will be just heat shrink tubing that one, but first, let's do the other wire. The other wire is the same process, just let it go for a sec. Put a bit of heat shrink tubing over the wire. There we go. Grab it in this hand, put the wires relatively close together, and then I, again, use my own hand, trying to get it so that you guys can see this. There we go. And solder it. Oops. It may take a pass or two to get the wires to make contact. There we go. Successfully soldered. Let go with this hand. Now there is no tension. The hand screw got a little loose. There we go. So now I'm going to hold it like so on the bulb and bring up the heat shrink tubing. Simple process here just to keep the wires. Oh, that needs to be fixed. All right, the easiest way to do heat shrink tubing, You can use a heat gun. I just use a lighter. Quick and easy, just like that. And with that, this LED assembly should be done. So I'm going to test it out real quick. We're gonna take this, plug it in to one of the light ports on the Scx24 ESC. Plug it in like so. Turn the power on. And we've got LEDs that work. Perfect. Now hopefully they reach. Yep, they reach just fine. All right. Now the last modification I want to do with these ones is they're not exactly the most authentic color. This is a 1970 Chevy C10. Let's see if we can change the color up a little bit. All right, as you can see, this LED is now a little bit better colored. All I did was put a little bit of yellow Sharpie marker over it. So I'm gonna do that to the other one, put it into the bumper, and see how it looks. All right, so I just got it all installed, and as you can see, they work as expected. It's really hard to see on camera the coloring because they almost look bluish on camera, but they are, you know, relatively yellow, so they look all right. I mean, they're not fantastic, but it's not bad. So now the big one, which is the headlights, I'm probably not going to do any coloring for those. I just want to have white headlights up here, but the installation is going to be a bit trickier because the light buckets are here. So in order for this to work, I have to rig up a massive line right here that goes all the way around the hinge and ends up at this plug. So I'm going to figure that out and then put you guys back on. All right, so after digging around my electronics bin, I found this cord that I just kind of clipped, and now it'll plug in just fine. So looking at it lengthwise, we're definitely going to need to add some more length. So I'm going to have to find some more wire and solder up a little wire train. So I'll do that and put you guys back on. All right, so I found some extra wires and I just soldered them right here using the helping hands. And now this wire is a whole lot longer. So now let's see if it is long enough. So if we, let's see, the plug's about there, has to wrap around the hinge. I think I'm going to need to solder one more pair of wires on. All right, stand by. All right, so now I've got this massive wire soldered together. I've got some massive heat shrink tubing on it to keep the two wires together. So now it's really just a matter of plugging it in and kind of seeing where the wire ends up. So my plan, if I can get the antenna out of the way. There we go. My plan is to kind of route it underneath here, avoid the drivetrain, you know, obviously, and it's going to come back up here and around, and you're going to end up right there. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah, so I'm going to route it underneath here and get it as close to here as possible, and then we'll work on the lights themselves. Okay, so let me show you what I've done. I have gotten the wire routed pretty well all the way up through the body up to this point where it's now at the headlight buckets. So for that, I'm probably going to wire the lights in series. So I'm going to put one here, then have a wire going over to the other one, and then the negative will be connected there. So that's my plan. Hopefully it works out. I'm probably not going to show it on camera. You guys know it's just soldering, and I'll show you what the end result is. All right, so it turns out that the reason that these weren't working is because the way I wired them just wasn't producing enough energy. So I had them wired in series at first, and that didn't work. So now I've got them wired in parallel, if you can see that. It's all wired up parallel. And as you can see, the lights look pretty good. Let me put the body clip on, because now the body doesn't really sit on there great because of the wire being there. But take a look. Now the Scx24 has got its whole lighting system set up. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little show and tell of rigging up new lights to my Axial Scx24. If you did like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment in the section below for what videos you'd like to see next. But that is all for today, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.